my first question comes from JJ. There's a new order for masks around here and more people talking about rising COVID cases. How will another wave affect the court system this time? Are we prepared? Again, that question is from JJ.
Well, JJ, you know, we've certainly seen a spike in COVID cases here lately. The mayor of Jackson has issued an amended executive order, which is requiring masks in public, indoors or outdoors, and they can fine or issue citations to businesses and even shut businesses down for 24 hours that don't comply. I think the big question is, did we reopen too soon? And it's hard to know exactly, but it certainly seems like in some spots, especially out west, maybe so. You have over 25,000 cases in Mississippi, over 2,000 in Hinds County, and over 1,000 deaths in the state. Everybody wants that to stop. Everybody wants to slow it down. And people may complain about wearing masks. People may say you can't control, you know, my body and things like that, but it really is for the greater good. Now, the second part of JJ's question is about the effect on the court system. Tim, you want to talk about that?
Well, you know, I think we're probably a little in the dark, but not only the lawyers that are going to be practicing before the courts, but I think the courts are probably trying to figure out exactly how they're going to handle this if the cases continue to rise, because I know there's been trials set. I had a call last week with a state court judge administrator trying to find out if I had a case that started in October, what their position would be, whether or not a criminal docket would take precedent over the civil docket. Quite frankly, they have not had a trial yet. They're keeping the trials on the schedule that start from September, October. But I think that they fully expect to have to move those cases if things continue like they are, not just from a perspective from their staffing, but for getting jurors and jurors into voir dire. You've got limited spaces in some of your state court venues. And so I really think it's kind of up in the air. So I think the answer is really, we don't know.
And changes from day to day.
Well, and the thing about it is, just a week or two ago on the show, we talked about the federal courts were about to start having cases again, trials again in late July and August, because they're now building up this criminal docket in addition to the civil cases that Tim and I do. But these people charged with crimes, they deserve their day in court, and they have to have a speedy trial. They are a right to a speedy trial. And so this second wave is going to throw a huge wrench in that. I do not foresee any trials going forward in July, and maybe not August, until we flatten the curve again, until we stop the cases rising. We're getting 50,000 new cases a day. You can't have trials. Who's going to show up if they get a jury summons? Who's going to go with the risk of catching COVID, especially if you're older, especially if you have an immune disease or you're at high risk? It'd be a bad idea to try and make people come to a trial right now.
One thing I would like to say about
One
thing I would like to say about masks is it amazes me that so many folks are resistant to wearing something that has been proven in the studies to actually help prevent the spread. And so, I mean, if I could say one thing to folks, wear your mask and try not to complain.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, speaking of having to show up in court, can I be in trouble? Can I get in trouble if I refuse, or we're going to say, is COVID an excuse to get out of serving on a jury or appearing in court?
If they send out jury summons, I believe that, I mean, a jury summons is a jury summons, and it means you need to show up on a given day. Now, I think that's part of the problem that the courts may be having with respect to having jury trials, because they do know that they're going to send these summons out to those who may have already legitimate reasons to not serve on a jury, over 65, and some other issues. But I mean, I think that the fear of the COVID, in my mind, truthfully, would be a legitimate excuse not to serve on a jury. But I don't believe it's an excuse not to show up if you're summoned. I think the court's going to have to look at that very, very closely and make decisions on when these summons go out of how they're going to deal with folks not showing up.
But they're trying to make sure you don't have that choice. They are not sending out any jury summonses right now, not in state court.
That's right.
They're trying to prevent you from having to make that decision.
And we just don't know what's going to happen as we move further down into the fall.
And recently, the Hinds County Board of Supervisors, back to your point a little earlier about when we were talking about the city of Jackson, the mandatory wearing masks in the city limits. To my understanding, I think recently the Hinds County Board of Supervisors have passed something as well. Are you guys familiar with that?
I think you're going to see a lot of government boards go back to where we were in March and April, where they were putting restrictions on people. I mean, it seems like we took 2 steps forward and we were getting ready to reopen, and now you have this other wave. And if you don't take these precautions, we're going to be in a world of hurt, because the hospitals are getting close again to being at full capacity.
And what we don't want is to have, and we I mean, we as a collective community don't want these businesses to have to shut back down. And I mean, I think we need to do the things that we can do to try to help prevent the spread or slow the spread until there's a vaccine, or we get further along to understand the disease a little more, because shutting the economy down is really, in my opinion, not necessarily an option, and hopefully not one that we're headed towards anytime soon.
Yeah, and the face coverings appear to be working really well. So like you said, keep those your face covered, keep those masks, and do your part to help out your fellow neighbor and coworkers and friends, all of us in this together, as we say.